All right, so in this video, we're going to look at adding and subtracting fractions. Adding and subtracting fractions. All right, so let's say we have a fraction like 2 over 5 plus 1 over 5. When you add in fractions, the key point is to establish a common denominator, right? The first fraction has a denominator of 5, and the second fraction also has a denominator of 5. When we see them like this, we say the denominators are common or similar or the same, right? When that happens, all you have to do is just to add the numerators, right? So 2 plus 1 will be 3 over the denominator, the common denominator, right? And that's it. You are done, right? Let's do another one. Let's see. Sorry about that. Let me erase this. So let's say you have 7 over 9 plus 2 over 9, for example. Right here, the common denominator is 9. So we have our 9 here. And the numerator is also 9 when we add 7 to 2. So we got 9 over 9, which basically is equal to 1. All right. So this is for adding where you have common denominator. What about if the denominators are not common? So let's use this part of the board to write this. So let's say you have 3 over 7 plus 5 over 14, right? So like I mentioned before, with fractions, when you adding or subtracting, the key thing is to look for a common denominator. Once you have the common denominator, all you have to do is to apply the operation to the numerators, right? So here we look at the denominators. We have a 14 here, we have a 7 here. So they are not common, right? So we look for a way to make them become common. One way to do that is look at the two numbers and see if they have any relationship, right, in terms of multiples or factors, right? We can see that 14, right, is a multiple of 7, right? Or 7 is a factor of 14, right? So that's the opposite relation. So we can try and make this become 14 by multiplying by what? 2. As soon as we do that, we have to do the same thing here. If we're able to do that, then we haven't really changed the expression, right? Because we can easily cancel out the 2 and we're back to 3 over 7. So it's very important when you're dealing with fractions, anything you do in the numerator, you do the same thing in the denominator, right? And normally the only thing you can do will be to multiply or divide, right? You cannot subtract, in the way that I'm trying to explain. So we can see that up here we have 6 plus 5, which is 11. And our denominator now is 14. Remember, we don't do anything with the denominator. All we have to make sure is they are common. Once they are common, then the denominator is the common denominator, right? The actual operation is performed on the numerator by first establishing a common denominator, right? Let's do another example. Let's say we have 4 over 15 plus 2 over 5. Here is the same, right? We look at the denominators, we see they are not common yet. We can make them become common. We see there's a relationship between 15 and 5, right? 5 is a factor of 15, and 15 is a multiple of 5. So we look for a number to multiply 15 by, so that it becomes, to multiply 5 by, so it becomes 15. So this is going to be 3. And as soon as you do that, without even blinking, do the same thing in the numerator of the fraction, right? So we multiply the numerator by 3 and then the denominator by 3. So once we do this, now we have 4 over 15 plus 6 over 15, right? So our lives are easy now. We don't worry about the denominator because you're not going to do anything with the denominator. You just write it down. The numerator now is 4 plus 6, which is 10, right? Once you do this, you can, reduce to lowest term by looking for a common factor between the top and the bottom and use that to divide. But that's for another occasion. So let's move on. Now we're going to try and do subtraction of fractions, right? So let's say we have 7 over 8 minus 3 over 4, right? Similar to what we did in addition of fractions, what you're going to do first is to establish a common denominator, right? So we look at these two denominators, 8 and 4. They are not common yet. We can make them become common by looking for the relationship, right? And normally you're aiming at getting to the larger of the two, or whichever number of fractions there are. So here, if we multiply 4 by 2, it will become 8. As soon as we multiply by 2, we have to remember to multiply the numerator also by 2. Once you are able to do this, you haven't changed this a bit. It's the same thing. You've just written the equivalent fraction, right? So this then becomes 7 over 8 minus the top one becomes 6. The bottom is 8. We have a common denominator. Hooray! So we write a common denominator. And then on top we have 7 minus 6, which is 1. Right? So 7/8 minus 3/4 is 1/8. Right? All right, let's do another one. So I have here 5 over 7 minus 3 over 14. Right? Here too, we notice the denominators are different, right? The good thing is one is a multiple of the other, or one is the factor of the other. So we try and write this one, multiply by 2 by 2. Whatever you do in numerator, do in the denominator, and vice versa. So here, our denominator is 14 again. Remember, you don't do anything with the denominator. As soon as it becomes common, you leave it alone. All right, and you move on. And The numerator now becomes 10 minus 3, which is 7, right? And this, if we are to write the equivalent fraction of this, right, it can reduce to a lowest term of 1 over 2, right? It's basically dividing this by 7, divided it by 7, right? So there will be opportunities to reduce fractions to their lowest terms. You just have to look at the numerator and denominator, establish if there's a relationship from your multiplication table, and then you use that idea to take care of business, right? I'll do one last one where the denominators are not straightforward to, turn into become common denominators, right? In this case, let's say I have 2 over 3 minus 1 over 5, right? If you have something like this, what you need to do is establish the common denominator by, there's a cross strategy, because these are small numbers. So you can basically multiply this by this, right, to get 15. So we have established that we're going to make the denominator to be 15. So multiply this by 5, right? As soon as we do that, multiply this also by 5. So this has become 15. We want this one to also become 15. So what do? Multiply this by 3 and do the same thing here by 3, right? So we have rewritten the whole fraction operation by establishing a common denominator. So the first one becomes 10 over 15 minus 3 over 15, right? Once we do our subtraction, it becomes 7 over 15. All right? So these things come with practice. You have to practice a lot, and then you develop your own strategy to move quicker, right? Especially with the ways of establishing the common denominator, because it's not always going to be, multiples or factors between the two, right? It can be, odd numbers like this, and then you have to deal with it. All right, thanks for listening in.